What is up, people? We are kind of half asleep still. Second time that we've done a podcast the day after, but this is Double Axe's podcast number 4. We will be discussing the Mayweather versus Mcgregor aftermath. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please continue to support us on YouTube. Please continue to support us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be. So we appreciate you guys watching so much. And I guess without further ado, you want to jump right into the fights last night? So
why not?
I guess everybody else has been discussing it for almost 24 hours on social media.
Yeah.
I've kind of saved my opinion other than kind of posting the ESPN stats of the punch count. But haven't really spoke on it at all. So, we watched the fight last night together. We went to a friend's house. We had probably 10, 15 people there. I thought that was one of the cool parts about this whole build-up and fight and everything else is that it seemed when I was driving to go out there, just looking around and seeing so many cars and stuff parked at houses, it just seemed like it turned into a big event for people, which is pretty cool.
It brings people together. It's like a companionship because we all have the same love in combat sports. So
right, and even though the build-up was kind of MMA versus boxing, Floyd couldn't have done this without Conor, and Conor couldn't have done it without Floyd. It really kind of branched, the two sports together there, and it made it a really interesting event that even people that weren't necessarily watching combat sports or watching UFC or watching boxing kind of brought them out just because of all the hype and everything else. It really brought a lot of people out that may not even know anything about the sport, and hopefully last night brought a lot of respect for MMA and for boxing both, and maybe created some new fans. So we did the podcast kind of breaking it down several weeks ago. I feel like first maybe we should talk about kind of what changed in between when we did our first podcast and actually leading up to the fight. So is there anything that kind of stuck out to you as far as the build up, as far as the pre-shows or seeing their training or anything that that you kind of made a mental note of that you wanted to talk about first?
I kind of think they almost overdid it with the big shows that they were going around the world and doing. I think they should have done maybe one here in the United States and maybe one in Europe, something like that, and kept it kind of basic and kept the people that were wanting to watch the fight, give them something to kind of want to go towards, and it's like they were, really digging themselves into the ground to me.
Yeah, I definitely think that they ran out of content, so to speak.
For sure.
The first two, especially the one up in Canada, they were awesome, and then it kind of became redundant. You're kind of hearing the same lines over and over again.
Same old.
And there really wasn't much to talk about, and it just became more of a show than anything else. I still feel like it was a good thing. They sold out every place that they went. In Canada there was people outside. It was, crazy atmosphere. So I feel like it was a good thing, but like you said, it kind of became redundant and repetitive to where it just wasn't as fun anymore.
I guess maybe it's like for more casual people, it gave them really something to look forward to and watch and see what people were doing. But I guess people like us that really dig in deep to matchups and stuff like that, it really got kind of old pretty quick for us.
Yeah.
So
even though I watched every single one of them.
Yeah, you got to, I guess, as many as they'll put on.
So, transitioning into post press conferences, going into the training itself, was there anything that you saw that stuck out to you? Like I said, that you kind of wanted to talk about. I'll kind of let you give your thoughts, and then I'll kind of give a couple of mine as well.
To me, when they were going through like the training and stuff, it looked like Conor was more focused and more determined, and his heart was set into it, and Floyd almost looked like he was taking it lightly from what they showed.
Right.
And that's a big mental note that I took. That I was like, well, if he's kind of overlooking this guy, we might be in for a surprise, or he at least might surprise him a little bit. So.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the perception that the Mayweather camp wanted to create. I think that they wanted to kind of throw wool over your eyes to make it look like he wasn't training. You know, I talked with you about it, and he was eating Whoppers and stuff like that. They were really kind of manipulating the mindset of everybody, which, I mean, that's part of the gamesmanship.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I would have actually liked to see some of his training, especially with a fight like this. It's a once in a lifetime, you know, event. I would have really liked to see how he prepared for it. I know that they said he didn't spar the last month of his camp or anything, but it would have really been nice to see how Floyd prepared, you know, and then to kind of transition that to Conor and to look at the way that he prepared, so you can kind of get an idea of, you know, what led up to them, the game plans, you know, just from more of a historical perspective, you know, because I really feel like this is something that people are going to talk about for a very long time. And I kind of felt a little, I don't know if cheated is the right word, but a little bit cheated that we didn't get to see more of the build-up, because I've watched the 24/7 shows.
Yeah, I have too.
You know, all these things for boxing and stuff over the years. And, you know, all of the Mayweather camps, all of the fights that he's kind of tricked me into watching, or, you know, I've watched to hope that he gets beat or whatever it may be. It showed a lot more of his training, and like you can at least respect that part of it. But like you said, he did a really good job deceiving everyone. I'm sure that he was tweeting from his strip club and everything like that fight week. And I mean, I think it was all just part of the show.
Yeah, it really surprised us both at the weigh-in when he stepped out there and he had like a 12-pack, and I was like,
he looked
wow.
great. He looked great. Pete, you know, Conor said he looked a lot better, and I'm like, I don't know. I remember seeing him for the Pacquiao fight, and he looked in much better condition this fight than he did for the Pacquiao. I didn't watch the Berto fight, but as far as the way his body and everything looked to be 40, 41 years old, I thought he looked great.
He was in crazy
that
shape.
That was kind of the first, you know, the first time that you knew that he was just blowing smoke, and he really took it serious.
Yeah.
So I guess we would be remiss without discussing the Paulie scenario. So,
the Paulie
do you want to give your thoughts on that?
That's one of those things. It's I guess probably touchy subject with a lot of people, but that really broke it down into boxing versus MMA, it seemed. And Paulie, I don't know. I mean, nobody knows really. But from the video of the sparring and stuff that happened, it looked like Paulie was out of shape, and Conor kind of took advantage of that. And Conor was really wanting to get back at him for all the stuff that he had said, because that's pretty much all Paulie did, was just talk trash about Conor and how he wasn't a boxer and all this, and then Conor invited him to his camp, and Conor kind of took it personal, and we saw what happened on the sparring footage.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's been gone over before, but I think Paulie came in there. He thought that he was going to provide help to Mcgregor, and, you know, not to break down too much of the fight just yet, but in hindsight, I really feel like that Paulie's experience inside the boxing ring could have been a great advantage to McGregor. And I feel like it was just a completely, I mean, nobody profited off of it. I mean, yeah, it brought a little hype for the fight and stuff like that, but was it really worth it, or was the main concern to get better and to try to be able to apply that, you know, on fight night? Because Conor was upset, understandably so. He said, you're going to come in here and you're going to get, you know, I'm going to kick your butt, basically. And, you know, I really think that Paulie thought he was going to come in there to help, and they were going to be, you know, friends or whatever else. And, you know, Paulie came in out of shape. He wasn't expecting to do that many rounds. And Conor just took advantage of it and used it as a hype train. And, you know, he made Paulie eat his words, yes. But in the grand scheme of things, was that really worth it? Or would it be more advantageous for him to try to take advantage of Paulie's world championship experience and maybe prepare for some of the things that he saw last night?
Yeah,
a little bit better.
ultimately, that was just a total loss for the McGregor camp because they could have used Paulie and Paulie's experience and knowledge, and really probably came in better shape than he did last night, and been prepared for 12 full rounds to go with Floyd. So
Yeah. And kind of to transition a little bit, we talked about, the lead up on Floyd's side, but I was super impressed at all the work that Connor was doing. Because as we talked about in the breakdown, the biggest thing for me was Connor's conditioning. And it looked like that they did everything that they could to try to get him prepared as far as using modern technology. He was in there every day. He was, like you said, very determined, very motivated to do everything he could to try to put the best performance on possible. And so I was really impressed with Connor's camp, which like I said, it leaves me feeling cheated because we didn't get to see Floyd's camp because like I said, this is history. But super impressed with everything that I saw as far as his strength and conditioning, his cardio, with all the bike riding and everything like that. Everything that they used was very impressive. Obviously, it didn't get him into the shape that I would have liked to have been able to see, but I don't know if anything other than actually being in there on fight night could actually prepare you, especially for the first time.
Going up against a 49-0 boxer at the time, I mean, it's just
for sure. I mean, it definitely, of course, these scenarios are not anything like we'll ever probably see again. But for a guy that's transitioned to boxing, obviously you would have liked to see him start with a 6 round and move up 10 round,
or maybe
8
even
round,
maybe even
10
a
round,
4 round
round
to start out.
Yeah, I don't know that a whole lot of fights get sanctioned at the pro level with that. I think that most of them are at least 6. 4 rounds. I think 4 rounds would have been a cakewalk for him. I think the 6 round would have been
really
kind of perfect.
Stepping into deep waters at that point, yeah.
But we can't get what we wish for. No situation's ideal. He stepped up and he went into a format that he was not familiar with, that he had not participated in, and it showed last night. So, all right, so I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't pay attention to the prelims. I'm not sure that there's anything we want to talk about the prelims. So, they were talking about the delay. I guess we were all together and we had stuff to do. We really weren't. At least it didn't feel like much of a delay for me. So, they do their walk-ins. The music and stuff wasn't overpowering, but they do their walk-ins. They come in, and you kind of wanted to talk about what I said immediately. Floyd kind of does his own thing. He pretty much he's got a good poker face, so you really never know what to expect on him. But for me, seeing Conor in MMA, he's always ultra brash, ultra confident. He's got a strut about him, but I didn't see that at all last night. He seemed very tentative. It didn't really look like, he looked out of his element, which is something that Floyd said. You got to give him credit for that. He's like, everybody has a good game until they actually get underneath the lights, and it's a different story. So, did you want to talk more about that? Or?
Yeah, as the walkouts happen and Conor gets out there, Kellen says he doesn't look right, he looks jittery. And that's exactly the way he looked, and that's exactly the way that he performed, really. Because like he said just now, usually he gets in the ring, he's doing his strut, and he's confident as all get out, and his face is just like stone.
Yeah.
And last night he was looking around and stuff, and you could tell it. And I think that really got in his mind a little bit, and that really affected him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, I don't know that Floyd's the greatest boxer all around of all time, just because of some of his kind of flat performances, so to speak. But he's definitely the best defensive boxer of all time. And you're coming out of your element. You're stepping in a boxing ring. You've got shoes on. If you get rocked or something and you get a little bit out of it and you try to choke him or knee him or something, you're going to lose 90% of your purse. So, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things on his mind. For someone that speaks at length about the mentality and how the mind kind of drives so much of the combat sports, it kind of surprised me, though. to see. Like I said, I don't know if it was concern. I don't know if it was nervousness. Only he knows the truth. But I knew that I just knew that he wasn't right compared to what we saw with, Aldo or Alvarez, who are world champions in their own right, and getting in there. And it's like he already knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And with Floyd, it didn't seem, I guess maybe he said all this stuff. Maybe he did visualize it, but I guess visualizing and actually taking place are two different things in this realm of boxing. So perhaps that's what he's worried about. I mean, he's the only one that knows the truth of it. So yeah. So the early rounds start. Obviously, in our opinion, I'm not really sure. With boxing, it has such a history of corruption. They protect certain people. It goes on and on. There's no need for us to beat a dead horse on this stuff. I'm not really sure that you can pay attention to any of those cards that they posted from the people that were actually the judges. Yeah. We all knew that if it went to decision, there was a 0% chance that Conor McGregor was going to win that fight, even if he won every round. So, in my opinion, in the opinion of many of the people that I saw online, in the opinion of the ringside judge at Showtime, which I felt he did a very good job being unbiased. I mean, I think that Conor easily won the first 3 rounds, just on output alone.
For sure.
So, that being said, what did you see in those first 3 rounds that you liked and the first 3 rounds that you did not like? What are some of those?
Floyd, in the first 3 rounds, Conor came out and was aggressive, switching stances, kind of like what we said was going to happen.
Yep, exactly.
He was throwing some stuff at Floyd that Floyd wasn't used to seeing. And then you had the typical Floyd covering up, not very offensive. He only threw like 12 punches in the first 2 rounds, so 6 punches each round. So he just wasn't very offensively productive. And Conor was just kind of peppering him, and it didn't look like Conor was putting much into his shots, but he was picking his shots, and he would go to the body and he would pepper him to the head, and they weren't really landing like flush. They were hitting Floyd's hands and stuff like that, but Conor was for sure more productive and the aggressor. So that's why the first 3 rounds, that's the breakdown for him.
So, like you said, what I liked and what we knew all along, Floyd's traditionally a slow starter. Conor's typically a pretty fast starter, in my opinion. So these were his rounds. We know this going in. I liked that he was aggressive. I liked that he did what he said he was going to do, which is take the center of the ring and kind of dictate the pace. And you said he picked some of his shots, but what I said in the first breakdown and what I still believe is that the shots that he needed to throw needed to be full power. I don't agree with whatever thing that he had to go in here and throw these little quick. It was almost, we talked about it was almost Diaz-like as far as kind of throwing half power, quarter power shots. I don't see the point in doing that. When he landed his power shots, they were effective. You could tell that Floyd felt them, but he didn't throw them even half as much as I would have liked to have seen. It was not. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know if he planned on saving himself for the later rounds or what. But for me, those first few rounds, especially seeing how rusty that Floyd looked, that was the make or break time. That was the kill or be killed time, and that was his really good opportunity because Floyd wasn't doing the normal things that he did as far as getting in a rhythm and parrying those shots and using the shoulder roll or whatever for the scenario. He wasn't even covering up sometimes. Some of those first punches that he threw were very sloppy. I mean, very sloppy for Floyd Mayweather, and that should have been Conor's time to counter over the top or whatever it may be. And some of those he did, but there was nothing behind it to actually get Floyd's respect or attention.
Just enough to kind of do this.
It was definitely a giant waste in my opinion. And then you kind of add into the underhooks and the throwing the short shots and stuff. I mean, we all knew it, and if he didn't know it, then he got bad coaching. But we all knew as soon as it tied up, they were going to break it. And Floyd kept turning his back and doing these things, and Conor was still wasting energy to do whatever. I mean, if it was me and Floyd turned his back, I probably just would have shoved him.
And then
and or created space.
Yeah.
Why am I going to try to take his back and throw shots? I mean, that aren't effective.
And then on the turnaround, Conor could have easily landed a left.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Off the break.
Or he could have sensed that the ropes were behind him, and he could have used that to get Floyd over the behind him and against the ropes, and then turned around and threw shots. I mean, it was, if you're going to waste energy to try to get hooks and to try to take his back and throw these, I mean, what are those going to do? That's wasted energy. Yeah. That's 5 or 10 of these is one good left hand. Yeah. So why waste it? And it was very frustrating to me. I was pacing like a madman, which is kind of the thing that I do when I watch people that I like watching fight. And I was like, what are you doing? Every time that he got Floyd's attention, he was hesitant. He wasn't going in. He wasn't moving forward. And just so much of that was wasted, in my opinion. And just beyond belief. I don't understand what the thought process was. That I don't know if maybe he took Floyd's training to heart, and like we talked about just a little bit ago, maybe he actually thought that Floyd wasn't training hard and that he could throw these little pot shots and then eventually get Floyd tired and then use the full power shots. But I don't understand that.
Like he said, the only chance that Conor had was in probably the first 4 rounds. And that was if he came out and threw everything with power and surprised the hell out of this guy, and landed a few shots and really got his attention, and then followed through.
Yeah. I mean, you got the uppercut in the first round that glanced off Floyd's, and that was the only real power shot that he put his weight behind. But there was nothing following it. Why not follow that with a straight left? I mean, it just was. It was maddening to watch it unfold after all these months. And for him to say that he's gonna kind of put Floyd to sleep in the first 4 rounds, maybe the first round, and then to see him throw these little shots. I've never seen him throw those in MMA.
I've never seen him throw those shots at all. He always throws with power and follows through with other things.
Why? Yeah, I didn't understand. It was just so much of a waste of energy. And maybe it was nervousness. Maybe it was the plan. Maybe they thought that Floyd hadn't trained. I don't know. Only he knows. But to me, going from that 3rd round into the 4th round and seeing what the game plan was, like we said in the breakdown, after round 4 or 5, it's Floyd's ball game. So, transitioning into those rounds, Floyd takes over, and it's a different Floyd from what we're used to. I mean,
for sure.
Once again, I feel cheated by the fact that we didn't get the build up of him, watching him train, etc. And I also feel cheated that I've paid for all these Floyd Mayweather fights in the past. Yes, just to see somebody try to beat him. But where was this aggressiveness? He obviously has it inside of him. And to me, seeing him take shots and stuff, I was like, oh, it makes sense now, because this is a guy that's not a boxer, and he's coming in and he's landing these shots on Floyd because Floyd's getting over aggressive and extending. And he's taking some shots, but in the end, it worked out for Floyd. So it makes you wonder how much better of his career would be looking back on it if he gave those type of performances against everybody.
Yeah, I was about to say before you said it, I feel cheated to watch Floyd Mayweather last night not be like he was last night in really any of his other fights.
Right.
It's, it was exciting to watch him kind of tee off and do some flashy things, and he could fight a lot more exciting than he has, and he's chose to just be smart and try to win off points.
And that makes you wonder. I mean, like I said, he's taking punches. He took 111 punches from Conor last night. So was it sustainable from a professional boxer? Maybe not. But how much better would his legacy look if he kind of brought that type of action instead of trying to throw, 3 or 4 punches in a round and steal the round? I mean, it was much more exciting watching him push forward. Hitting Conor at the end of his punches with full power. I mean, he was literally trying to take Conor's head off. I mean, like he said. So, Floyd was obviously the most impressive part to me last night. He had a game plan. He let Conor punch on him those first 3 rounds. I don't even think he could have predicted the little tiny shots. I mean, maybe he did, maybe saw it coming, but it was super impressive to see his game plan and, kind of watch it evolve and watch him download Conor, a guy that, there's not been anybody that he's fought like him, with the ranges and the changes in stances and all the little things that Conor does. It was very impressive for me to watch how he evolved and watch him turn up his aggressiveness and actually follow through with what he said, because too many times I've watched Floyd fights and he said he's going to do this and said he's going to do that, and he doesn't. He just runs.
Yeah, points out.
Yeah, and so, I had Conor first 3. There was one round in between. I think it was the 5th round that I thought that maybe Conor could have stole it, because he did land some very good shots, although Floyd was the aggressor. But, I think we all can agree that basically...
I think the 5th round, wasn't that the one that Conor seemed like he hurt him to the body and got him in the corner? You remember that?
That was later on.
Well, that was the 8th round, I think.
I think it was actually the 9th. Because, like I said, he takes over. And so one of those rounds in there, I believe Conor landed enough shots that somebody, that was actually a non-biased judge could have given it to him. But I can't say that with certainty. I know that the Showtime ringside judge going into the 10th round had it 86-85, which is 5-4, which I can see. Conor definitely won 3, maybe 4. So to start that, 9th round and 10th round, which were obviously Floyd's best rounds when Conor started showing the fatigue that we worried about, that we talked about. A lot of people say there's no way that Floyd can knock him out. And, we kind of touched on that, but I also said I can see a scenario where Floyd's able to get a TKO because Conor's too tired to respond, and that's exactly what happened. But to start the 9th, you're absolutely correct. He went high with something and hit him low, and you can see Floyd react.
Buckle,
and go into the corner. And once again, Conor follows him, but he allows himself to get tied up, and then he's not ultra aggressive. He has to understand that those are his moments. And he just didn't seem like he had the wind to do it. And it didn't seem like the referee was going to allow anything to happen as far as them to try to work through it. Because obviously Floyd, being a savvy vet, getting hit to the body, getting hurt, I think he was complaining that it was a low shot. The camera angle was from behind, so all we could see was it landing. I didn't see an alternate thing, an alternate angle to actually see where it was. But it seemed like Floyd kind of looked up and was complaining to the ref. But he obviously buckled. And, instead of, if it was me and I had any wind at all, I would have jumped on him right there. And he tried, but he let himself get tough. And he started throwing these little tiny shots again.
Of course, the ref was stepping in and trying to do stuff. So.
He was definitely protecting, which, to me, I knew that was going to happen. I knew that they weren't going to allow him any clinch fighting. I knew there was not going to be any dirty boxing. When he's going over the instructions at the very beginning, he's not looking at both of them. He's staring at Conor and saying all this stuff. It's like,
he's staring straight at
do you remember
Conor.
the Victor Ortiz fight with Floyd? It's like, are you not going to tell him too? Because Floyd's obviously done some pretty dirty stuff.
Shady stuff.
It's in Conor's contract that if he does any of this stuff, he's going to lose his money.
So, he already knows.
Yeah, he knows. So, it just went to go show the bias of boxing and how they were protecting themselves. And, after that shot landed, it was all Floyd. Conor got tired. He weathered the storm in the 9th, but it was kind of very Diaz fight-like, where he seemed very tired. He was taking shots. He wasn't using any defense. He wasn't getting his hands up at all. He was just taking them right on the button. And he was just trying to move and evade as much as he could with head movement, but he wasn't blocking any of them. Floyd was hitting him with everything that he had, which is amazing that Floyd's that old and was still able to kind of carry that aggressiveness into those later rounds for me. And it just goes to show you once again how serious he took this fight. So going into the 10th, he was obviously kind of wobbly, from the 9th, and it's just all Floyd. What did you think about the stoppage itself?
I guess, you have to agree with it. You have to take it because at the time I was rooting for Conor. But at the time, I didn't really agree with it at first. But looking over it again, I agree with it. He wasn't protecting himself. He was getting all these shots and not holding his hands up. He wasn't protecting his face. Wasn't protecting his body. He was just getting hit and just circling out and trying to move.
Use head movement.
And trying to use head movement.
So you don't agree with what Conor said at all, as far as saying, "Let me go out on my shield. Let the man put me down."
I mean, it could have happened that way, but it would have happened that way if that stoppage wouldn't have happened. I mean, it was just the end of the fight was gonna happen right there. And if Conor somehow did get into the next round, it would have happened in that round. So
the only way that it wouldn't have ended is by Floyd punching himself out, or by Conor landing something significant to get his attention, which I hadn't seen anything that would give evidence for that. I'm kind of torn on it. I think that, once again, Conor has to know going into it that all of the odds are against him, and that if he put himself into that situation, that's exactly what was going to happen, because that referee was dying to stop that fight. Watching the overhead replay, a lot of those shots didn't land flush, but Conor wasn't defending himself. He wasn't being aggressive as far as throwing anything back. He's pretty much just in evasive maneuvers. He can say that he wasn't hurt or whatever, but fatigue makes you far more susceptible to those punches. And I think they go hand in hand. I don't think there's any way that he can say he wasn't hurt, because obviously those punches had an effect. He was stumbling backwards and falling against the ropes and things like that. If he had just covered up, or maybe try to get a tie up, use the thing that's most important to jiu-jitsu is kind of wrestling, and to MMA versus boxing was the wrestling and the clinch, which is why they broke it up. And he didn't use any of those maneuvers at all. He didn't try to get underhooks. He didn't try to tie Floyd up, which is just a rookie mistake, and shows once again why Paulie would have been advantageous to help him understand. Okay, if you get hurt, this is where you tie up. This is how you do it. This is how you recover. When Floyd puts his head in his chest, we don't need to be throwing these shots. He's just trying to sap you of energy, whatever it may be. Any of those little tidbits that Paulie could have provided, I think, would have helped him in those 9th and 10th rounds. Because watching the footage and kind of seeing some of the sparring, it seemed like Conor was a bully all the time, and he had to understand that sooner or later there was a chance that Floyd could be dishing some out and he might have to survive. And I think that shows a lack of foresight on Conor's camp and Conor by not using that resource that they had. I think Paulie handled it ridiculously bad. I think Conor's camp handled it ridiculously bad. To me, there's blame on both sides. And I think that it's just sad, because we might have had a different outcome, or at least Conor surviving through the 12th round, even if Floyd, because it looked like Floyd was on his way to the decision, which is what we said basically. If it gets past the 5th round, Floyd's going to download it. Floyd actually kind of downloaded everything faster than I thought he would. He knew what he was going to do in the 4th, and he took over, and he was able to implement his game plan, which it seemed to be like rope-a-dope in the early stages, and then take him in deep water and drown him. And that's exactly what he did. So, I'm a little bit split on the stoppage, but I think Conor has to know that that's what was going to happen if he put himself in that position.
And another thing that I'd like to add is if Conor fought 2 rounds the way that Floyd fought towards the end of the fight, it would have changed things a lot, I think. If he
like the first 2 rounds?
The first 2 rounds, that's really your only shot.
Did you see Floyd throwing any of these little baby punches?
No, I saw
Floyd was trying to rip his head off.
I saw Floyd literally leaping off of his rear foot,
putting everything
he had.
Those little tiny brittle hands.
Yeah, those little tiny brittle hands hurt.
I mean, especially when you're tired.
Yeah.
And like you said, I didn't see Floyd doing any of this stuff. Conor promised me that he was gonna be a 170-pound Irish gorilla trying to rip his head off, and I saw one man trying to rip his head off, and that was Floyd. So, once again,
it impressed the hell out of me, because I'd never seen Floyd fight that way.
No.
And I was like, wow, he really can unleash.
And he was emotional about it afterwards, saying that he owed the fans for the Pacquiao fight. And, he did. I mean, I stayed up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning watching it and was about to fall asleep. And, so super impressed by Floyd. He was a man of his word last night. I'll never like the guy because of all of the little antics and because of his personal life and all the things that he's done. But I feel like that he said all the right things last night, so it's his PR move to say all those right things and try to get right with the public. And I think that he definitely was well on his way, so let's see if he gets in his own way again at some point in time. But I feel like, like you said, he was a man of his word. He did everything, and Conor didn't really perform despite the fact that he won rounds, he didn't really perform up to his potential, in my opinion. He really wasted those first couple rounds on those little baby shots when he could have been ripping them. So, you know, obviously Floyd won, which, you know, it was a scenario that I saw. It wasn't, to me, it wasn't a very likely scenario, but I didn't foresee Floyd being so aggressive. So, you know, like I said, Conor got tired and Floyd took advantage of it, which is a scenario that I saw, but I didn't believe it would be very likely. So, from the beginning, I was very adamant about MMA guys and boxing guys saying that Conor didn't have a chance, and it frustrated, you know, me to no end to hear this talk. And I mean, to me, watching the fight, he obviously had a chance, and a very good chance in those early rounds, despite the fact that he kind of squandered them a little bit, but he still won those rounds. He still landed more punches than Manny Pacquiao, 111 punches, 6 less than Canelo, just like you said. So, you know, what do you think as far as the way that MMA looked, and kind of what we were saying that Conor actually had a chance? What do you say to those people? You know, do you feel vindicated by last night's performance? Or
I think Conor did good, and represented MMA, and everybody that said that he didn't have a shot. He went 10 rounds, and somebody that was 49-0 in boxing. So you can't really argue that he didn't perform, because he won rounds against this guy.
Won more rounds than anybody had in a long time. They said since maybe Cotto.
I mean, he won rounds against a 49-0 guy that is. I mean,
you know, his last fight was Andre Berto, a world champion, and I think on the scorecards, Berto may have won 1 round or something like that.
And well, you've got the biased judges at ringside that are
appointed by Mayweather Promotions.
TMT, the Money Team, but. I mean, like you said, the Showtime guy had it 85-86, and that's how we had it. If not 87, 85 or whatever.
87, 84.
84, 87, 84.
Worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario. He at least won 3
I
rounds.
saw people saying that Conor won 5 rounds. I wouldn't stretch it to that. I think that's more of a coming from an MMA perspective. I think understanding kind of the boxing judges and stuff like that. I thought best case scenario, Conor was down 5-4. Best case, maybe 6-3. So, the part that frustrates me the most, you know, Guy said he wouldn't land a punch, he wouldn't win a round. He landed 111 punches. He won 3, maybe 4 rounds. And instead of just saying, you know what, Floyd won, I was wrong, Conor performed better than I thought, he did have a chance in the fight, you know, whatever it may be, I still saw a bunch of guys saying, see, I told you so. And it's like, you know, if Conor got outclassed, if he didn't land punches, if he didn't win rounds, I would be a man and get on here today and say, look, I was wrong. Conor sold me some wolf tickets that I believed, and he didn't follow through with it. Do I think that Conor could have done better? Do I think that, you know, as being a backseat driver or a couch quarterback or whatever you want to say, I think that he should have done things different, but he didn't. But the fact remains that he still did well against the greatest defensive boxer of all time. He obviously had a very good chance. He hurt Floyd with the body shot. There was plenty of other opportunities, you know, with the right uppercut. I remember seeing a left hand that it didn't seem like he put full steam on, and he caught Floyd as a grazing shot. What happens if you put full steam on it? So I mean, I feel like he has to live with those moments, but I feel like that our position that, you know, Floyd being 41 in the position, and I mean, let's be honest, that was, although Floyd looked rough in the early rounds, as far as being an offensive minded fighter, that's the best that I've seen Floyd maybe ever. So, you know, obviously he was getting a good run from Floyd as far as the offense he was getting. So, I mean, and he still did this well. So I feel completely vindicated in saying that Conor had a chance. Conor had his moments. He could have done a lot of things differently, but he didn't. That's life. You know, Floyd won in scenarios that basically we said could happen. And I feel that he performed admirably for MMA. You know, James Toney lasted 1 minute and 30 seconds. Conor McGregor lasted 10 rounds. So, I mean, that's when James Toney came to MMA, he lasted 1 minute and 30 seconds against Randy Couture, who was an aging fighter. And, you know, James Toney was an aging fighter as well, but still, Randy Couture is one of the greatest. And so, you know, you look at at boxing, and Conor went 10 rounds, was one of the greatest to ever put on gloves. So I mean, I feel completely vindicated. And if those people can't admit that they were wrong and that it was a competitive fight, I just feel sorry for them. I mean, I don't know.
You're never going to be satisfied in the fight world in combat sports. You're always going to find fault in something, even if somebody goes in there and does a heck of a performance and loses, which is sports. So you're never going to be happy.
Yeah, it's just sad that people put being right over the truth because of this day in social media and everything else. And you know, like watching ESPN leading up to this, all the things that they said sway a lot of people that are just casual fans or that are just coming to tune in. That those people didn't get a good run from ESPN or from anybody else breaking down the fight. And by being a knowledgeable MMA fan and putting this stuff out there, you're swaying people's minds to be like, see, I told you, Conor didn't have a chance. It's like, man, are you even a fan?
Yeah.
Like, and some not all of them did that. You know, I commend those people that went on there and said, you know what, I was wrong. Conor did a lot better than I expected. Even Floyd said Conor was a lot better than he expected. That's Floyd Mayweather. That's getting praised from Floyd Mayweather. I mean, and like I said, the punch stats alone to me vindicates it. I mean, Floyd only outlanded him by 30 or 40 punches, and you see how many punches that Floyd threw in those last 2 rounds. So, I mean, it was pretty much completely one-sided as far as Floyd throwing the punches. There wasn't much offense being put out by Conor at all, kind of like those early rounds. So it's, you know, I feel completely vindicated. I feel sorry for everyone that wants to get their opinion out and that wants to be right more than what the evidence and the fight last night showed. So, anything else you want to add to that, or?
You pretty well hit the.
Yeah, I think that everybody that came into this fight with an open mind, you know, there's always going to be people that are on the extreme, but I think the majority of the people saw the fight for what it was and was thoroughly impressed with Conor. And, you know, he got a lot of people's respect, and a lot of people hopefully will tune into MMA from now on. And hopefully it pushes boxing, you know, with Canelo Triple G on the horizons. Hopefully it kind of gives a lift to boxing, because boxing's kind of been, you know, on the downswing and doesn't have a lot of exciting fights. And that was a very exciting fight. It was a very exciting fight that lived up to the bill. And, you know, I hope that it propels both sports, and I hope that all those people in the middle who may have listened to ESPN or other announcers, or even people that claim to be knowledgeable MMA fans, what they put online, I hope that they saw everything for what it truly was. So
yeah,
that's my hope.
Yeah.
So obviously Floyd says it's it for him, which I guess we'll have to see if he gets another IRS lien in a couple of years or whatever it is, and you know, we might be able to see him back in the ring at some point in time. But what do you think? What do you want to see for Conor moving forward? You know, what's
the the dream fight that I'd like to see him as a fan? I really don't want to see him go up against Nate again. I think that I think if they did get matched up again, I think that he would beat Nate again, especially going through this and training boxing. So I would really like to see him against Khabib Nurmagomedov. And he actually, I think he said before he fought Floyd that he would fight him in Russia, which that would be interesting. Either that, or I would like to see him go up against whoever wins between Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee. I think that would be good. So,
so basically, as far as Khabib, Khabib had every chance to step up and fight Tony Ferguson. Kevin Lee was not supposed to be the guy that's fighting for the interim title. Khabib, to me, with all of his weight cutting issues and without kind of stepping up and doing the right thing and fighting Tony, I have no desire to see that fight whatsoever. So that's just me personally. I think that Khabib let the train roll by him. As cool as it would have been to see Khabib versus Conor in Russia and all the hype and everything else that would have brought, I don't see as it being a good draw for the UFC. I don't see that Khabib as being deserving of that type of payday or that type of attention. I think that Conor's too big now, especially kind of doing this fight at 154 pounds. I feel like the way that he looked against Alvarez and the way that his body and everything looked last night, even after the weight cut, I feel like that 55 is his home, so I wouldn't like to see him drop down to 45 and fight Holloway. Maybe Aldo to catch weight, because Aldo hates him so much, but I think that Aldo kind of lost his foothold in that when he lost to Holloway. So that being said, that leaves pretty much Diaz, like you said, or it leaves the winner of Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson. you know, depending on, I'm not really sure what the date is for the Ferguson Lee fight. I know it's maybe November, possibly. So,
Yeah.
depending on how active that Conor wants to be and how much rest he wants to take off, if he wants to come back and be active and get like a fight in or whatever and move forward, if he wants to do a non-title fight with Nate Diaz at 155 pounds, people are going to pay for it. I would watch it. You know, you're going to watch it.
Yeah.
So if that's the case and he wants to be active right away, I see no issue with fighting Nate Diaz. It ends the whole thing. You know, it drives me nuts that Nick or Nate haven't been back in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of either one of them, but they make for compelling fights. You know, you know that those guys are going to be in the face of whoever they're fighting, and they're going to make them fight. And it's going to be very entertaining. And they're very skilled and talented fighters that are at the top of both their respective divisions. So it drives me nuts that they both kind of sat on the sidelines this long. And I think that this is what Nate's been waiting for. I think there's a lot of fans that kind of came into the sport watching Conor versus Nate 1 and 2. So if you want to put it to bed and you want to have a non-title fight at 55 to keep Conor active and to get that kind of payday and that push moving forward, then I'm all for it. But I absolutely think that if he wants to do that, that's fine. I think he beats Nate easily, especially at 55. With Nate being off for so long and Conor's continually been active, and like you said, he's been training to stand up, so it's going to be that much better. You know, if it's a non-title fight, a 3-round fight versus Nate Diaz should be a cakewalk for him.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all that being said, I'm 100% behind that, but I feel like that absolutely, you know, going forward, that the winner of Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee should be the fight that they make. Mm-hmm. Possibly, if that one's in November, possibly, you know, February for the Super Bowl card or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it gains momentum for both of them because not a lot of people know who Kevin Lee or Tony Ferguson is. And, you know, Tony Ferguson's been going through this giant beef with Khabib. Khabib didn't step up and sign the dotted line. Yeah. And so he kind of goes to the way back, in my opinion. So, yeah. Let them fight it out. Let them determine. And who knows? I mean, with the injury bugs and everything else, one of those guys could get hurt, and then Conor's right there to step in.
Oh, yeah.
Versus them, and it's not an interim title fight anymore. It's an actual title fight.
And the only reason I said that I'd like to see Khabib and Conor is that just as a fan because of the matchup.
Yeah, and I get that. I get that completely, but
yeah, I lost a lot of respect for Khabib. This past year has lost a lot of respect for him as a fighter. I never really liked him to begin with, but I always thought that I'd like to see him against somebody that's really good at stand-up.
Yeah, I mean, he just doesn't. He's not committed. He does not hiring a dietitian. He's not taking care of himself to make sure he can make 55. He's almost died twice now.
I think Tony Ferguson would destroy him because he's so well-rounded.
I think so too. And
even I think Kevin Lee might. I mean, Kevin Lee.
Yeah, I don't feel like Kevin Lee's the proven commodity. I mean, he beat Michael Chiesa, so I mean, to me, I haven't seen enough out of Kevin Lee to say that he could beat Khabib. But he did have the guts to stand up and call out Khabib after every fight he won. Mm-hmm. So obviously, he believes in himself, which is half the battle. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the Ferguson Kevin Lee fight with Kevin Lee's momentum is very compelling. I still feel like Tony Ferguson wins.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we kind of have the Conor fight. So that's kind of what I want to see. I don't want to see Conor box anymore. Personally.
No, I don't either.
I don't see the.
And I know Paulie's gonna want him and stuff in a boxing ring, but it's just it's not where he needs to be at.
Yeah, if I don't care about the money, to me, I don't want to see these fights. He's in his prime right now, and if he's gonna give it to MMA, he needs to give it to MMA. If he's gonna give it to boxing, he needs to give it to boxing because this half in, half out stuff does not work.
You can't do it. Yeah.
I feel like if it's as bad as they said it was, and they release the tapes and they see Paulie getting beat up, nobody's gonna want to see that fight anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want to see it.
It's. Please, Conor, don't make us sit through more boxing prelims.
Oh God, yeah. Please no more. Start at 6 o'clock at night. One time Conor go on.
1. Like 1:05. Eastern.
Yeah, I don't even know what time it was, but all I know
we
is
had a good 7 hours of boxing last night.
And you know, they weren't.
They
could have done so
too,
much better with that card. There were so many guys that wanted to be on that card, and Floyd made sure that it was all his people, which is what happens when you're the promoter.
And they all won too.
Yeah, that's because they were probably not fighting any talent. I don't know enough about
TMT, baby.
I don't know enough about the lower levels of boxing to determine that, but they really could have made that card a lot better. You know, everybody said no, don't put MMA fighters on there. We only want one MMA fighter. Well, guess what? If you put more MMA fighters on the undercard of that versus boxing, it would have been a heck of a lot more exciting. So they blew the opportunity. So that's a very valid point. Yes, Connor, please do not put us through any more boxing prelims.
Exactly.
Please go back to MMA. That way we can complain about a competitive fight in MMA and not boxing.
Yeah, the MMA prelims, you'll go, man, this guy just knocked this guy out, and then 6 months later, you're like, man, he's on the main card. He's good. I like to watch him. So
for sure. So, all right. So, kind of moving along, we did make a pick for the Bellator fight that was Friday, the day before the boxing fight. So we both picked correctly in picking Koreshkov. You know, kind of looked a little bit sloppy, but still got the job done. I think that kind of comes with fighting Chidi. I think Chidi's long and had a lot of advantages on the feet, and I think he looked a little bit awkward. He was able to kind of play a little bit more of a power game. Chidi landed some nice leg kicks in the beginning that really show a chink in Koreshkov's armor that Lima and some other guys have kind of shown in the past. So, but we were both right. Koreshkov gets him down and he pounds him out in the first round, which kind of sets up a Lima rematch, which for me is very exciting. I love watching Koreshkov fight. So,
yeah.
And I feel like he brings out the best in Douglas Lima because obviously the Larkin fight did not.
Yeah, not at all.
So that brings both of our records up to 6-3 with our picks. So getting a little bit more respectable after that.
I feel good about it.
That first night. So maybe talk about a couple current events. We got Frank Mir signing with Bellator, which was kind of a big deal to both of us. So I know that you're a big Frank Mir fan, so want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I really like Frank Mir. I like what he's done for the sport. I think that him signing with Bellator, that gives him several options of who he can go up against, and I hadn't talked to you about it earlier before, but even maybe a Fedor matchup, that would be good. They're both probably around the same age, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure, and they both world champions in their own right. Frank Mir had a pretty good run in title. Obviously, nobody touches Fedor's title run in Pride. So for sure,
it would be interesting to watch. Then you've also got Roy Nelson, who just signed, and Roy Nelson is fighting a guy named Javi Ayala. I believe that's how you pronounce it.
You with the pronunciation
I'm pretty good. Like Njikwani, I got that all day.
I don't have it. That's why I said Chidi.
That's why I'm sitting here probably.
You're the pronouncer guy.
Pronunciation guy. But that Javi Ayala, he is a monster, and I would suggest that everybody look at his highlight reel on YouTube. But Frank Mir fighting either of those guys would be exciting. Frank Mir's already beat Roy Nelson. They also had a grappling match. I think it was like in 2000. And Roy Nelson beat him in a grappling match.
It's a very interesting fact.
But
you're coming with the truth today.
I'm bringing the truth. I'm a Frank Mir fan. So, yeah. And then Frank Mir really avenged that in the UFC. He fought Roy Nelson and beat him. And I'd also be open and like to watch Frank Mir versus Matt Mitrione. I don't really care too much for Matt Mitrione, but the guy can fight, and I admit it. So that would be an interesting fight. Frank Mir's well-rounded. He's got black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and his boxing has came a long way from when he first started. So, yeah,
for me, as soon as Frank Mir signed, Fedor was the first fight that I thought of. They both kind of, obviously had a little bit of a downslope in their career. I feel like they're both kind of in the same place, and I feel like that's a really compelling matchup. Because they both beat Nagaro twice. I mean. You got all these little things that, for the history of MMA, make it very compelling. Fedor showed a little bit of a glimpse against Mitrione. Obviously, did not look that great, but I feel like that I still want to see if he's serious about MMA, I feel like I really want to see what he has left. I feel like that's a great kind of test to see where Frank Mir's at as well. You know, and like I said, you've got all the lineage with the titles and stuff like that that make it interesting. That's really the only fight that I would want to see at this point, because I think that anything else with Frank Mir would be kind of wasted. You know, he's such a big name. He has such a good history with the UFC, and you know, with holding the most submission wins and being such a young guy when he came into the sport, and kind of surviving for that long and having, you know, some awesome victories. You know, the crazy Tim Sylvia arm break or whatever it may be, submitting Brock.
Had a motorcycle wreck and came back.
And that's really kind of the turning point for me with Frank Mir. You know, I never really liked the guy, but after that motorcycle accident, I really got to see how he persevered through that, and that gave me a lot of respect for him. I hated seeing him beat Nogueira twice, and you know, some of the other things, but you know, you got to give props to the guy, and I feel like that he's deserving of better than what the UFC gave him and treated him, and I feel like that you're going to waste that opportunity to give Frank Mir a big fight right away, you know, because they kind of let Mitrione's obviously not as big of a name, but they kind of let him fight two or lower tier guys, and you know, then he eventually got Fedor, which he defeated. But you know, to bring Frank Mir in, I think they should really capitalize on it, kind of like they did with Lorenz Larkin, having him fight in Lima right away. So the Fedor fight is, for me, is the one that I want to see, and I don't think Frank Mir is off suspension until early next year as well. So.
Yeah, he's still got a little bit of his suspension.
But you could really announce it now and kind of let that hype build, and kind of, you know, we have a lot of big fights in Bellator coming up, and you can kind of fill the card in around that. You know, even if it's not a main event, even if you want to make it a co-main, you know, or even I don't care where it is on the card, I'll still watch it. But you can definitely build the card around that, kind of like they did with New York, building around Fedor. So I feel like we would be we'd be letting everybody down after our strong opinions on the John Jones breakdown if we didn't talk about this situation with John Jones. So, do you want to have the floor, or do you want me to go ahead and speak on it first?
I'll let you drop on it first.
Okay, you want me to drop? You know, this is what we were worried about. You know, we got a little bit of hate for our pick of DC over John Jones. We didn't know where John Jones's head was. He looked better than ever. You know, once again, every time I try to turn the page with John Jones and be like, man, the future is bright. We've got all these fantastic matchups. Yeah, something like this happens. And I understand that it's kind of a weird situation with him passing all the drug tests leading up and then failing the one right at fight time. But that's what happened to him before. That's what happened to Brock before. So, you know, obviously there's something going on. It's still your responsibility to determine what you're putting in your body. You know, especially with him. Like, even if you have to send it to a lab to get it tested before you put it in your body, something. I mean, he has to be smarter than this. This is what, the third time he's failed a drug test. And it's just, I mean, it's just my fears coming to pass. This is why I can't trust John Jones. He's the best talent that's ever been in the UFC, and for whatever reason, he can't get out of his own way. And, you know, there was talk of the Brock fight. We both talked about it. I mean, we would definitely watch it, but we weren't that excited. I was more excited for the Gustafsson fight. It seemed like he was looking more to heavyweight. Maybe it's because he was juicing and he needed to do something with that body.
Obviously.
Oh, that's too soon? Too soon? Okay, too soon.
It's not too soon.
But, you know, they were talking about the Stipe fight, and because, you know, they really didn't, and it's just so frustrating. That would have been such a cool fight. It would have done such big numbers for the UFC. It would have really been a gauge to see where John Jones is coming back and if he has a future at heavyweight. And it's just, I mean, it's a mega bummer, but it's what I was talking about from the beginning. And the reason why that I picked DC is because you never know what you're going to get out of John Jones.
I agree. That's that's a lot of my reasoning was that, and I thought that John Jones would have been vulnerable. But when I found out about this, I just started laughing because I'm so used to it now. Being a longtime fan, every time you hear John Jones, you think of controversy and you think of failed drug tests and you think of his drug usage and the stuff that he's done in his personal life, and here it is still following him. So it's really disappointing as a fan because you want to see him. You want to see him as many times as you can because he's really a once in a lifetime kind of guy to go in there and do his thing. And I don't see why he would need enhancements or anything like that, because he's just such a good, skillfully guy, and he's physically gifted as compared to a lot of people in that division of light heavyweight. So I just
compared to anybody, period.
yeah, really, I just don't get this guy. I just don't get him, and I'm not a fan of him. And the more this stuff happens, the lower he gets down. I don't know if it's possible for him to go down anymore, but it's just one of those things where it keeps following him. He's got demons, and they keep following him, and it's just super disappointing to any fan.
Right. When you put yourself out there the way that he has, and this stuff happens, it just makes you think that it's some kind of karmic justice. That I didn't laugh. I wasn't angry this time. I just felt sad. I felt sad for John Jones. I felt sad for the UFC. I feel sad for all of us as fans, because we've just been cheated out of so much as far as, the matchups and his legacy and things like that. I mean, you've got an all-time great champion, and I was watching the top 10 greatest runs of all time, and John Jones was right in there. I mean, how do you continue to put this out there with all the bad decisions as far as in his personal life, as far as what he puts in his body? It's baffling. It's unlike anything that I've ever seen before, and maybe in any sport ever, because here he wins. He won us over a little bit in the fact that we're like, okay, he came prepared to fight. He had a game plan.
He brought it in that fight,
and like, we're looking forward to all these matchups. He's going on Good Morning America. He's going on ESPN. He's creating all these good relationships, and we have all these potential matchups and all this bright future to look forward to. And we're like, okay, all this stuff's in the past, and then boom, no drug test. It's just, I don't even know what to say anymore. I really don't. And let's say that even if they prove it's a tainted supplement, okay, well, he's still suspended for how long?
It's a long time.
At least a year, probably.
Yeah.
And so that's another year that you lose in John Jones' prime because of stupidity, and it just completely frustrating.
Just don't put yourself in those positions. Like he said, you're a professional fighter. What goes in your body is going to show on a test.
Right.
And
you're responsible for that.
You're responsible for
these supplements are made overseas for the most part, and they mix them in these giant vats, and basically they can mix one supplement that has something banned in it, take it out, and then there's residues and stuff left in that, and so they mix this next batch, and what you end up with is some type of tainted supplement. There are supplements that guarantee that they are, banned, substance free and stuff like that. Like, why not be using those? Why not, like I said, he's a millionaire. Why not make sure he's getting them tested? There's a long list of things that he could be doing to try to prevent this, especially in his situation.
I agree. It's not really shocking anymore, as it is just sad, dumb, really.
Think of how much money that he cheated himself and Stipe out of. Do you know what the numbers would have been on that fight? Do you know the excitement? Two guys in their prime that have just train wrecked their entire divisions. I would have been on cloud nine, and I'm not a big fan of either one of them. I like Stipe obviously a lot better than John Jones, but Stipe is not one of my all-time favorites or anything like that. And just think of the hype and how much it would have rewarded the fans. And once again, John Jones had the chance to kind of build this again, win or lose. If he goes up there and he beats Stipe, they're like, he's the greatest of all time. If he goes up there and loses Stipe, it's like, oh well, he's fighting a heavyweight, and then he's got all these adventures back down at 205. And you're building Stipe's legacy as well. It's hurting everybody.
Yeah, it is.
So it's very unfortunate. It's very sad. And once again, I kind of feel like our perspective on all of it was right, in kind of being skeptical about all this.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's pretty much all we had to talk about at this point. We are gonna do a Bellator 183 UFC 215 joint podcast, which is coming up pretty soon. Both of those are awesome fight cards, and I'm super excited about that. It's going to be hard to get all the content into that one, but definitely if you enjoy listening to us and you're looking for those cards like we are, then definitely tune into that, because we're going to prepare really hard and try to have a lot of good stuff for you on that. Any other thoughts or anything else that you want to talk about?
The only thing that I can add is just like, share, comment.
Absolutely.
These podcasts, if you enjoy them. If you have any suggestions or anything, you can comment those. Let us know how we're doing and share with your friends if you enjoy it, and comment, like, and
and seek us out on social media as well. And you can comment on the Double Axis Podcast Facebook page, on the Double Axis Instagram page, on the Double Axis YouTube page. You can find me, Kellen Wimbern, on Instagram or Twitter. We need to get you an Instagram.
Yeah. I actually thought about that.
Just imagine how cute you would be on Instagram with that shirt on right now.
Yeah. Oh, see, we could screenshot this right here.
Yeah.
And that could be
your cover photo. On the gram. We're missing out. So but find Billy on Facebook.
Yeah, Billy Johnson.
Billy Johnson. Give him an ad. If you have any suggestions or you have any comments, definitely leave it to us. We're going to try to continue to improve and try to take those and make it better. Hopefully have some guests and stuff in the future. Bring in some other people with some other perspectives and ideas, and just try to continue to bring you good content. And the podcast is going to be about many things, but this was kind of the basis of it. Surrounding the MMA and the combat sports. Obviously, hopefully by now you can tell how passionate we are about it, and we're going to try to continue to bring it every time we can.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely,
and we'll try to have somebody run the camera next time too, so we're not getting up and.
It's just part of it, though.
Part of it. So, but we're out here grinding. We're putting the work in, and we're going to keep bringing it to you guys. So we appreciate it very much, and we'll see you the next go round.